that time.
Boo,
Boo boo boppy boo.
Thought you could beat us.
Let's find out if I can get the bot to play a song. Big maybe here, boys. But
He's trying to get the butt to play a song.
Come
yes.
on.
I mean, if you're the one heading up the stream, it works.
This is the Player 4 podcast. Join us each week as we talk about video games, entertainment, and pop culture, and bring in guests from the Rooster Teeth community. Player 4 has entered the game. Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Tristan, aka Shagrazier.
I'm Alex, aka Chaos Black 21.
And I'm Joseph, aka Jay Dunlap, on the Rooster Teeth website.
Oh,
Anymore.
I messed up.
Oh no!
I pushed that update button.
Oh no, but are we recording still?
Oh, yeah, no, that doesn't have
Okay.
any effect on the stream, that's just me going, whoops!
Well, I mean, it had an effect as it took you out of the call and then came back in.
Yeah, but that doesn't affect I'm the one doing the streaming thingy.
I know.
It's all good. My bad.
Did we lose the intros?
No. I did it after you did the intro. I just saw the green button and clicked it because I have no self-control.
You never hit the green button.
I always hit the green button. I can't help
Not
myself.
when you're
More button
doing
pushing.
something.
I couldn't help it. Okay, let's get the topics out of the way.
Wait, we're down to Malachi?
Yeah, we're down to Malachi. We're past it. I'm over it.
Alright, let's talk about the topics. What are the topics?
The topics are Arizona Circle is the first episode came out today. There's a couple games that are coming out tomorrow that are kind of big. One of them being a shooter and the other one being an RPG. We'll find out later what they are. And finally, Joseph has a new game that he just started of D&D.
It's true.
Okay, so Arizona Circle. This was hyped up pretty much a year ago, a little over a year, because it was not this past RTX, but the RTX before that in 2018, where around that time when the pilot was shown at RTX, and then later it was released like shortly after. And that was from, they said that they would release the pilot if they got a certain amount of subscriptions, I believe, for the RT first. And so then over a year later now, they made a whole entire season for it because everybody loved it, and now the first episode was released today at October 23rd.
Aha. Yeah, did you watch it?
No, because I don't have first.
Are you excited to watch it once you're able to?
Yeah, I was the last of us that finally didn't get first because I was grandfathered in this whole time, and this past time when they changed it, they decided to completely get rid of grandfathered, and so that was the point where I was like, okay, no more first for me.
Yeah.
So what is this show about?
It's a sketch comedy show. So based off the pilot, assuming the pilot is the episodes go similar to the pilot, there's kind of like an overarching, like, it's not really a big story. It's like an overarching kind of like theme going on, and then like little sketches come out of like things that are like in that kind of scene. So like the pilot episode was pretty much about Blaine being in the hospital, and then there'd be like posters, and it would zoom in on the poster after some of the other characters would be talking in the hospital, and then a new sketch would start like from something that was like in that poster or on like a coffee cup or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the best I can describe it. It's pretty weird. Some of the sketches on the pilot I really enjoyed. Some of them kind of fell flat for me. But this is mainly a project created between Funhouse and some of the RT people like Josh Flanagan, Chris Damaris, and Blaine Gibson. Those three are like the main RT people, and then it's all of Funhouse. Oh, and Jessica Vasami. I can't forget her because she's cool. So that's Arizona Circle.
Arizona Circle.
So I mean, hopefully at some point it will get released to normal, so I can watch it, and then I can give an accurate review of it.
Okay. Well, I look forward to it. And then you brought up Call of Duty Modern Warfare, this that they're releasing.
Yes.
Infinity Ward is actually back on it. The creator of the original Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare.
Yes, so then they decided to do a reimagining of it, not a remaster. So it's going to be based off of stuff that's happening, more on stuff that's happening currently as opposed to like the missions that they had in the past. For the single player, the multiplayer is of course the same old person versus person, just trying to capture flags or get kills. But the gameplay looks good, and I'm interested. This is actually the first Call of Duty I've been interested in for several years now. So I don't know if I'm going to get it instantly. I might wait a little bit and just see how things go. But the beta went well for it, and everybody's actually excited for it. They're not this time for once. They're not like, oh, it's another Call of Duty game.
I have seen some of the trailers for it, and I recognize like they've brought back some of the original characters, like, so it's still, it seems like it's still Price and Soap are going to have major roles, but the story they're telling seems to be quite different from the original trilogy.
Yes. Yeah, it's like Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare had actually a very good story, and I think they're going to bring elements of that to this one still, but it's still the campaign's still going to be different, and it's going to be based off of more of what's happening in the world today.
I mean, that makes sense. I guess I'll have to wait and see how it plays out to know really how I'll feel about it.
Yeah.
But
there's another game coming out.
Oh.
And this one you might like. It's called The Outer Worlds.
Oh, we're skipping ahead. Okay.
Yeah. This is the one I'm more excited about.
All right, talk to me about The Outer Worlds.
So The Outer Worlds is made by Obsidian, which, if you don't know, they made Fallout New Vegas and actually were the original creators of the original, first two Fallouts.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it's not Bethesda, but it's still an RPG in the same kind of format as Fallout. So I like to call it Fallout, Fallout with the RPG elements of Fallout mixed in with Borderlands setting, because it's in space. It's in space. It seems like it's kind of like a crazy world, not necessarily like as crazy as Borderlands is, where there's like people trying to just straight up kill you. It's more civilized than that, but at the same time, it's still like this weird kind of world where corporations have taken over and kind of rule the world. And it's you get to make choices, I guess, maybe on like what corporations you may want to help or not, or maybe start helping the little man instead. And I'm excited for it because I love Fallout games, and so this is right up my alley.
Nice.
Reminds me of Shadowrun with the corporations.
I did not think about that. That kind of makes sense a little bit.
Megacorps taking over the world, subverting the government.
And you got to choose who you're going to work for.
Exactly.
Make all the money, screw over everybody else.
Yeah. But they also kind of seem to have a little bit of like a Mass Effect-ness to them, where I was reading reviews today, and so far all the reviews seem to be at a consensus that it's actually a good game. I haven't heard anything bad review-wise for it. But there's an element where apparently it's similar to Borderlands in that it's not a completely open world, but they have big open areas that you can explore and do missions and all that. And then once you're done, you can go to a new area. But you can go back to that area, and after you've made like certain decisions, that can alter the way that like an area that you go back to might look, and it might open up
So it's what
other
Mass Effect
areas.
Andromeda was trying to do.
Yeah. So hopefully they did it better than that.
Right.
Which so far seems to be the case because, like I said, I've seen nothing but good reviews for the Outer Worlds.
Like we've even talked on the podcast about how the bad open world in Andromeda turned me into a Bethesda player.
Yeah, Joseph, are you still playing those games?
So I was playing a lot of Fallout 4 this summer, and then I was traveling as a judge and sort of got out of the routine. So I've been doing other stuff. Recently, just a few days ago, I was watching a friend streaming Guild Wars 2, and so Michael and I started playing a little bit of Guild Wars 2 this week just out of boredom, and it was fun. My character is like 6 years old at this point, so I got birthday presents for my character, and turned one of my characters that was level 1 into a level 60 character with one of the items.
Oh, nice. You know, I have Guild Wars 2 also, and I have not played it in several years myself. So I don't even want to start it because I know how much, like, how many updates, like how much memory is going to have to be installed onto it to catch up.
Well, the trick is once it's playable, then stop the downloader and just start playing. That way it's only ever downloading in the background what you need. And I never let it finish the download because I don't need all the in-game stuff. I just want to play the game.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because that's the way that World of Warcraft does it as well. Once it's playable, it'll show you whether it's downloading in the background or not, but otherwise it'll just let you play.
Interesting. I never thought about that. I pretty much just always let it go all the way through.
I didn't mean to bring up Guild Wars 2 for that long. I was just saying I'm out of the routine of playing Fallout right now, but I will get back into it before you know it, and then I'll tell you guys about how it's been going.
Okay. I mean, it's all right. Joseph, we embrace the tangent here.
Embrace it, love it, caress it. Give it a hug, send it out. Hope it doesn't give bad vibes.
Embrace the tangent.
Yeah. So it is back to the Outer Worlds. It is strictly single player. There's no multiplayer element to it, which is kind of a little refreshing. With like every single game, even if it's like mostly single player. Usually has some type of multiplayer element to it. So that's nice. And so at 11 p.m. Central Time tomorrow, that's what I'll be doing.
All right.
Woo-hoo!
You'll have to tell me how you like it.
I will, because I think that you would enjoy that, Tristan, if you decide to.
I'll have to look into it, see if it has a PC release and all that.
It does have a PC. I believe it's for Xbox PC and PS4.
Master Race.
PC Master Race. PC Nation. So, Joseph, you've told me to put in the topics that you have a D&D game that you just started, so now I want to know about it.
Yeah. So I don't know if I've mentioned too much about this in the past, but towards the end of the previous school year, I was asked by one of the band kids who was at the time the president of Game Guild, which is a campus organization like a fraternity, but with no requirements for membership, to become one of the faculty staff sponsors. The responsibility of a sponsor overall is simply to approve event requests that they are sending to Student Life. And I've gotten one. It was kind of cool. I got to say, yeah, I approve this, but also you can take an active role in the organization if you so choose. Traditionally, for example, the band fraternity and sorority, their sponsor tends to be some alumni or alumnae of the
Alumnus
organization,
or alumna?
while also alumnus would be plural, wouldn't it?
No.
No. Alumnus would be the singular.
Yes.
I'm sick and tired. Okay, I'm half here, but also the band director has an active role in it, just as per the bylaws of the organization. But in this case, it's just whoever is a nerd. It's Game Guild is the name of it. And fun fact, when I was the editor of the school newspaper over 10 years ago at this point, we had a feature in my last year as a student about an organization that had just started up, AGT, Anime, Gaming, and Tabletop.
Ooh.
Well, within the first few years of AGT's inception, it morphed into Game Guild. So while I wasn't involved with it at the time it was created, which would have been neat, I am now the sponsor, and when I'm able, I attend their meetings. But I also now host a weekly D&D game for them. And currently we are up to 6 members.
Nice.
Our first session was 3, then we got 2 more people, and now we've got a 6th member. And I said that's the limit. Now it's only spectators are invited, because spectators are fun. Tristan can attest to that.
I usually don't have people spectate. Spectating meaning in the same room, just because I think one of the things I used to tell people is if you want to get into role playing, you're gonna have to do the legwork to get into a game, because watching a role playing game I've never found as fun as playing it, and I don't want to get people turned off to the game. But like, oh, it's actually boring to watch. I think that's changed a little bit recently with the advent of things like Critical Role, where they are more for show. But I always am concerned, now that I've decided to stream, that things aren't going to be actiony, because my game, it doesn't tend to be super actiony. It's a lot of very important decisions being made. It's a lot of talking. But I do know that when I have spectators that are engaged in the story, they do express their appreciation for the show afterward. So.
Well, I meant more about your streaming.
Yes, that's what I mean. I do have one person who watches the stream regularly, and they tell me they love watching the game.
I enjoy having spectators whenever they just feel like being there, because they tend to enjoy the shenanigans that are gotten up to.
Yeah.
For example, the what comes to mind always is a Star Wars campaign I ran a few years back while the podcast was still young. That there was a session in the middle of a game store that 2 guys just sat there and listened to us because they were enjoying our roleplay so much. And my game tends to be a mix of decision making and shenanigan-y role playing and quirky NPCs and what you would expect from me as a DM, just by knowing me.
Mm.
So we're at a limit of 6 players now. I told them to prioritize because we generally have one campaign a day for the game guild, and several people are in multiple games out of that. Sorry, I'm dying over here. And I said, I want you to prioritize people who are not in several games, just like maybe one, maybe not even any. So slowly we started to trickle people in based off of, well, we've still got slots. Okay, who else can we invite until we got to 6 players?
Mm.
So one person was like, well, I don't know if I'm allowed to play because I'm already in a game. And I said, no, I just don't want someone who's in every game when there's someone who's not in any. So we've sort of prioritized it that way because it's the idea was just like a few hours a week I would run something as the sponsor. So we've got a Discord for Game Guild, and we've got a special channel called Sponsor D&D.
Joseph,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask, are any of them that are in your game like this is literally their first D&D kind of like group / campaign that they've done?
So far, I can't tell. I can't tell if any of them are actually new to role playing. I know that several of them are experienced. One of them actually knows 3.5 because we're doing 3.5, and the rest of them are learning 3.5 for the first time. There's a chance one of them might be new to role playing or is only in one other game, and the rest of them are pretty relatively experienced because they're college students. So if they've been role playing, it's probably only been a few years.
Okay.
I mean, 3.5 came out when they were in diapers, so. So I wanted them to get to learn this crunchy, rules-heavy system just because it's fun to learn new things, and I enjoy going back to it for the same reason that I like to go back and play the first Mass Effect. I like stats and numbers and making decisions about my character. And while I enjoy role-playing 5th edition, it's sometimes fun to just go back and have fun with the rules.
I don't miss the amount of work setting up encounters was in 3.5, but I do miss being able to assign skill points.
I do enjoy how quick it was for me to make my character for the 5th edition campaign I'm in, but
it's so
everything
quick.
has
You can
something
pop
to
out a
offer.
character in like 10 minutes, especially with
Yeah.
like D&D Beyond's builder.
By the time they finished their first encounter of the session that I joined, which is a friend is running this campaign, where 4 of us are judges and one person is like, what did I get myself into? Magic judges. And by the time they finished the campaign, I had my sorcerer done. Whereas it took, I think, 2 sittings to get 3 characters done for 3.5. But it's been rewarding. They've been enjoying learning the rule system. They've been enjoying spending the skill points. And I've been doing some house rules. There's a house rule I had back in the day when I was running 3.5 before we switched to Pathfinder, where I was requiring a D10 for skill checks. And the idea was that there's no such thing as getting lucky and just rolling a nat 20 when you don't have any points in the thing in the first place. And the players at the time really enjoyed it. They enjoyed that the things that they were good at were the things that their character were in fact good at. So I tried that with these guys, and on our first encounter, they were celebrating rolling like a 10 on the die so they can add their +3 modifier, and it just added a new element to the game. So we're sticking with it, and in fact, one of them is going to be DMing his own 3.5 campaign with that house rule. It's not one I would recommend just inflicting upon your players, but it actually makes it interesting when you have to spend skill points carefully. And for example, one of them wants to make full plate armor, but it's going to be a while before he can even try, because he's got to get a +8 modifier or higher to even succeed a check. So all that aside, so the crafting in 3.5 is you have to succeed in many craft checks to create a piece of armor. And it's 10 plus the armor class of the item that you have to succeed. And once you do that, you mark off an appropriate amount of value from the item until the value has been met, and now you've finished it.
Yep.
So they're actually talking about becoming a self-sufficient adventuring party through crafting, rather than just spending all their money on NPCs giving them stuff,
Gosh.
which is a thing that I'm not used to players really caring about. So I was sort of pushing them in that direction while telling them I'm only advising them, I'm telling them what to do. But what they could do is one of them could be the enchanter, one of them could make weapons, one of them could make armor, one of them could make potions, and then they don't have to buy anything from anyone. They just spend money on the materials.
Mm-hmm.
And so I intend to give them plenty of downtime in the campaign for that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, in 5th ed it requires so much downtime and it's so inefficient. Like it costs basically it's like the cost to create something in 5th ed is about 90% of what you make off of it. So you're only seeing a profit margin of 10% every time you do it. It's not worth it, like ever.
Wow.
And it's completely just out of reach in my campaign because there's no downtime in my campaign. Like they play they've roleplayed with the exception of like a day or 2 days or 3 days here or there. They roleplay every single day of the lives of their character.
No, I've done most of my campaigns have been like that. I've seldom had campaigns where there's downtime. Fortunately, the campaign that we're doing is one that I've used several times in the past as an introductory campaign, which they're working for the Adventurers Guild in a capital city.
Yep.
So they'll get free room and board from the Adventurers Guild plus a cut of whatever they make doing missions for them.
Yep.
Whenever they need a job, they go to the posting board in the main lobby.
Yeah.
They choose something and they go and do it, and they come back and give a cut to the guy who runs the Adventurers Guild.
Yeah, it's a pretty solid way of doing it. I used that for a Sword Coast game that I was asked to run a while back.
So I'd like to share some of the stories from the campaign so far, now that we've talked about the logistics of it and the idea that I want them to spend as much time just sort of living in the world, having downtime, having professions, making things, becoming ingrained in the society, as it were, just to try it out, you know. So the first adventure is actually one I've done before on a forum campaign, actually, which was the Adventurers Guild as well. Gina actually played in that one. It was before Roll D20 was really a thing.
Wait, do you mean
it was through some? It was, I can't remember what it was.
You mean
What did you say?
You mean Roll20.net?
Yeah, that's it. We didn't use Roll20. We used something else. I can't remember.
There's Roll20.
Exactly.
There's Map Tool is a good one.
It was a while ago. So the website we used as our home base doesn't even exist anymore because that website went down.
Yeah, no, there have been so many tools that I've used over the years, and a lot of them just don't exist anymore. I'd have to like go check my laptop from 2006 for the browsing history to see what websites those were.
So here's the first adventure they went on. They were sent from the capital city, and this is a world I've been doing games in for well over a decade at this point. There's a lot of history in the world now. And they've been sent to this fishing village a ways away, where they never really investigated the origin of it. So that's something for them to discover later. It's not really a big, deep, dark secret as much as it's just really interesting history behind it, where it was burned down at one point and repopulated through a program that was done by a local leader. Well, so they were sent there. They found a kid with amnesia on the beach on their way there, and brought him with them, and assumed that the name on his shirt was his name, on the tag of his shirt. So they go to a farmer outside the village who is having an issue where his sheep keep showing up missing or dead, and he believes it to be wolves. So they investigate, going further inland, and they discover that a nearby watering hole about a mile away it has littered dead corpses around it, just like dead animals. And it turns out the water is poisoned in some way. So the food sources are dying, and the wolves are venturing outside of their territory to find food. So they've been hunting sheep in the past few weeks. So they go about trying to find where the poison is. They get chewed out by the farmer because one night when they weren't there, they were out trying to figure out what was going on and also avoiding getting attacked by a wolf pack through the druid making friends with a wolf and calling it good boy because the diplomacy check worked and he wagged his tail. The farmer chewed them out because the wolves came and attacked his sheep again. They're like, no, we're working on it. We're trying to figure it out. So they found where the stream met like a fork in a larger stream that was a branch off from a river a ways away. And there was a dead animal just lying in the mouth of the stream. So they figured that was probably the source of the poison. So they pulled it out, and then the druid spent that day and the next day expending her spell slots purifying the water. And then they had to wait to find out what would happen. So they went back to the farm. Nothing's going on. They go to the druid's badger, whose name is Blitz, and wants to throw a coup in the party and become the leader because he doesn't like the paladin. He tracks with his scent ability to where the wolves are. And they go there, and it's just the mother and some pups. And they hang out for a while. And some time passes, and then the pack shows up. And they're just sort of chilling. So the druid uses wild empathy again and communicates with Good Boy and figures out that they've recently eaten. But they couldn't have gone that far, so they clearly didn't eat sheep. So then they go back to the watering hole and find that animals are actually grazing and drinking water again, so they fix the problem. So they go and they report their findings to the farmer. The village pays them. They go back to the Adventurers Guild and get their money. And that was their level 1 adventure, which is, you barely know how to swing a sword. Here, go fix this problem and come back.
Mm-hmm.
So their level 2 adventure that they just completed and did not level them up is an escort job they did for a merchant. They didn't know whether the merchant was looking for actual protection for some problem he's caused, or whether he's paranoid, or whether he wants to keep up appearances by having an armed guard of 5 people. But they take the job, and they go with him from town to town on the road to from the capital city all the way across the province to a river town, where he's going to do business with a ship that comes upriver. And the only real interesting thing that happens, other than, well, one of them gets drunk and gets in a brawl with sailors, and wakes up. That was fun. I made him leave the room when his character blacked out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I played his character, and then he got punched in the face a few times, and then woke up in his bed.
Creative.
And he was only allowed to come back in when his character had woken up.
Mm-hmm.
The only other thing of note was there were bandits who had put a tree in the road, highwaymen essentially, who wanted them to pay protection fees.
Mm-hmm.
So the paladin and the dwarf fighter walked over, picked up the trunk of a tree, tossed it off the road. They didn't yeet it; they Kobe'd it with an attack roll, and it flew a good 30 feet off the road. And the bandits just turned and walked away.
Alex,
Like, we don't want to mess with these guys.
that's a fair stance to take on that. Good on your bandits. Or Alex, remember when there was a tree blocking a road in our game?
There was like a couple trees, and yeah, I mean, I tried to hop over them with my tiger, and they, well, got eaten by one of them because it was a mimic. But then I got out of it, and I was like, all right, I'll go to the other tree. The mimic's right there. Nope, that was also a mimic.
It was one of my favorite uses of mimic. Actually, every time I use mimics in the campaign, it's been my favorite time that I used a mimic. They've all been wonderful, the way the party interacts with it. I think the latest mimic in my game was a door. They went into a room that had an obvious puzzle, and the door slammed and locked behind them. And so like all the other players looked up at this statue with a displaced sword, and they said, "Okay, we need to put the sword back into the statue, and that'll unlock the door." No, one of the players goes, "I'm getting out of here," grabs the door and tries to pull it open. Mimic.
Yeah, poor Cyrus.
He's everything just wants to eat the poor halfling.
Yep, mimics, purple worms, tigers.
He just looks delicious. So yeah, D&D's great, and I love it, and I'm glad that you're having a good time running it, Joseph. So are they going to hit
Blitz also had some fun. Blitz the Badger got to kill a garden snake, and he went into rage because badgers have rage.
Oh.
And ate the garden snake, which was really quick because it was a garden snake. And then combat ended, and he was fatigued, so he took a food coma and slept on the Druid's head, which is where he hangs out. He's determined to take over the party because he doesn't think the Paladin's doing a good job. The Paladin is from up north, so he's got a Russian accent, and will talk the ears off anyone who will allow him to while he talks about old country.
So the Badger is a barbarian, and he used Frenzied Rage.
Badgers have rage in 3.5, and they have scent, so they're like barbarian rangers.
Okay, I remember they had sense, because we had a druid who summoned a badger as his animal companion. I did not remember the rage. I remember in 4th edition, the druid became a really weird class, because they either like summoned regular animals to them and they would get a bunch of really weak ones, or they would choose one spirit animal and summon a beast mode of that one animal. And so they would get weird spells that involved their spirit animal. I remember coming into a session one day with a player I'd played 3.5 and 4th edition for years with. He'd always played a druid whose animal companion was a badger. And we went into 4th edition, recreated the character in 4th edition. All of a sudden, it started raining badger death on the field, where it was just like, you know, the spell created like illusions of badgers that would just rend people with their claws and then disappear. It's just like, what the heck is going on?
I love in D&D how illusions actually deal damage, whether or not you believe they exist.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. There are a couple throughout the editions where it will hurt you, generally with psychic damage, until you can succeed on a roll to determine that it's an illusion, and then it will either deal less damage or no damage.
My favorite are the ones that still deal damage, just half.
You're like, no, this is an illusion, and I know it. Stop hurting me.
So yeah, that's what's been going on.
Nice.
I'm slowly ramping up the difficulty of the adventures, not for the players, but for the characters. You know, because there's this idea that there's only so many characters in a world, regardless of whether they're PCs or NPCs, of a given level. Like, being a level 20 character would be a very rare thing. You're probably an archmage, or in the druid circle, or you're, like, high up commander in the army, or something like that. And that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea here is I'm trying to sort of ingrain them into the world in a way that I haven't done before, because usually I've got like a overarching plot that we're doing. In this case, it's more of them living their life in the world and leveling up in a natural way. And there's sort of role-playing advancement in certain areas, like the dwarf doesn't have points in craft yet, but he's got an apprenticeship with a armor smith right now.
Yeah.
And slowly I'm going to be allowing additional books. I always allow Dungeonscape variants, so the paladin's going to have a spirit of healing instead of a mount. The rogue can crit anything instead of trap sense, and the wizard will have the sun and moon ability, which is in one slot you prepare 2 spells, one you can use in light and one you can use in dark.
Wait, he can crit constructs?
What?
You said the rogue could crit anything.
Oh, yeah. There's a variant of Rogue in Dungeonscape, which is, instead of having 2 of your trap sense upgrades, instead you can crit things you shouldn't be able to because you study their anatomy.
That's so odd. But okay.
Well, Dungeonscape was designed as a supplement for DMs and players to create either, well, interesting dungeons or characters that survive in the dungeon more easily. It's the
Yeah.
book that introduced the Factotum class,
Okay.
which is the jack of all trades.
Right. I
So
get you.
yeah,
Yeah, it's been a
it's
long
I
time since
I, I
3.5.
so I always allow Dungeonscape, and I always, whenever they make a character, say, just so you know, this is the Dungeonscape variant for your class if you're interested. But as things go on, I'm going to start trickling in little bits of 3.5 for them, because 3.5 is not the player's handbook by a long shot. It's everything down to Dragon Magazine.
Ugh, I
Uh,
hate
as
Dragon
they
Magazine
as
with a
they
burning passion of 1,000 suns.
there are a few things I like in Dragon Magazine. The rest of it, I don't really care for. Like the
Fourth and
Urban Druid was really sweet.
during the run of 4th edition, Dragon Magazine became the source of all the hokey, oh hey, here's a cool item that you could use in your campaign, and it's like, here's this item that looks like a normal item, you can buy it like a normal item, it's priced almost like a normal item, but for some reason, it's got a feature on it that makes it so that whoever's wielding it has, like, an ability that is granted to one particular class at, like, 18th level, and it's like, but you could buy this at first level. Why would you get an 18th level ability at first level?
Okay, well, 3.5 Dungeon Magazine, Dragon Magazine is different. It mostly was just like, so you know how you have druids that like nature? Well, here's a thing where you could swap out a few abilities, and you could be an urban druid, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or you know how there's the paladin that's the lawful good, and they have all these abilities. Well, what if we swap out a few abilities, and we have the chaotic good version, or the lawful evil version?
God, the lawful evil paladin in 3.5 was terrifying.
Yeah, and then there's the Blackguard. Anyway, so I'm telling them now that when they reach 6th level, I will allow the complete books, the books that are like complete adventurer,
Complete
complete warrior,
Arcana.
complete arcane,
Yeah.
and that way, as they start to look at prestige classes, sure, there's the one in the Dungeons Guide, the Dungeon Master's Guide, but there's also all the prestige classes in the complete books, like the Paladin Rogue crossbreeds and the Druid Rogue crossbreeds. Well, everything Rogue, but there's a lot of different like
The
combining of
Blackguard
classes.
Rogadin
or
was the
just,
best one.
and so considering the Dwarf Fighter and the Human Paladin are both Tower Shield wielders, there's probably something up their alley in that direction, as well as just becoming walls.
Mm-hmm.
At level 2, the Dwarf has an AC of 19.
Yep.
So I'm encouraging them to start planning that direction, because I'll be allowing the complete books before you know it.
Yeah.
And I might also make them aware that Paragon classes exist. The racial Paragons.
I see.
So I'm slowly, now that they're getting the hang of 3.5, I'm slowly giving them more and more, but very, very slowly.
Yeah.
Because eventually we might do a campaign where anything is allowed.
Nice.
There was one I was trying to start last year that was going to be recorded where anything was allowed, and we had some fun with it. So what I'll do is we'll do this campaign until it's done, and then start a new one where now they know 3.5. Here's the PDF I made or adapted that has everything. Have fun. And then they're just going to go nuts.
Yeah, I'm doing an odd thing in my campaign currently where I basically have a pair of NPCs that are built 4th edition. Because they were from a 4th edition campaign, and the whole idea is that they dimension hopped into this 5th edition world. So it's kind of an interesting little side story with these dimension
That's neat.
hoppers.
That reminds me of, there was an idea I had, because I've done this particular world that I play in. I've used 3.5, I've used Pathfinder, and I've done a custom system. It'd be a cool idea to occasionally say, hey, what if just for today, or just for this next adventure, we port our characters over to Pathfinder, or we port it over to 5th, or we port it over to my custom D6 system, and just see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And you often find that aside from what you're rolling, the role-playing is not affected.
Yeah. No, it's true. Role-playing is role-playing. The system just governs combat.
Yeah, exactly. Or how to resolve interpersonal conflict.
Which is usually
Opposed
combat.
No, I'm talking about bartering or hiding, things like that.
and then punching him in the face because you have a personal conflict.
Everyone has their own way of dealing with conflict, Tristan. There's
Just
no
punch him in
wrong
the face.
way.
You always should
Like
just punch him in
failing
the
flipping
face.
tables.
Yes.
All right, we just hit
That.
45 minutes, so I think
Sweet.
we've done enough.
We've done enough damage. We'll talk about more stuff next week, because that's what podcasts do.
We'll roll more damage dice next week.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Hashtag,
Roll that dice thing.
Hashtag roll your die. Hashtag goodbye.
Goodbye. Roll dice.
There you go.
Nice. What's the subreddit for today, Tristan?
The subreddit? Oh, the subreddit was our kerning.
Well, yeah. Well, we were making subreddit jokes earlier. So, what's the subreddit for today's episode?
Oh, I guess it would be our game fails.
Our
Game fails.
We are failing at games.
Earlier there was PC Master Race.
Oh, that's true. Are we going with subredditing, or are we really going with hashtags? Because I would say hashtag PC Master Race.
Okay, well, there's also a subreddit for it. How about hashtag D&D quotes? That's one of my favorites.
I do love hashtag D&D quotes. I haven't done a D&D quotes tweet in forever. I need to do that.
I did a few when my campaign started, and the players are maintaining a Google Doc for me that has everything that happens, and they have there's a screen in the room we meet in student life that they put the map up on, and they have the Google Doc up on, so we sort of have the visual aid, and occasionally they'll bring up the player's handbook on the screen.
Yeah.
So they get to see where everything is on the map, and they have character names on the Google Doc, and then one of them will actually go through, because the guy who types in the spreadsheet, the Google Doc, sorry, I say spreadsheet a lot because I do that as a teacher. The guy who types in the Google Doc is the president of the organization, and he's like very get up and go, but is an atrocious typer and speller. So then the girl who plays the druid will go in during the week and proofread everything and add in quotes and a summary of what happened in the previous session. So we have a long-running doc of just everything that's happened.
Sounds good. I like having that. I have a running thread in my D&D channel where it's just after each game I do a summary of the stuff that happened with moderate levels of detail. Like, I won't put in quotes from characters unless they're very important, but I'll summarize all the actions and decisions that took place, and I'm very happy about that.
So you know how ideally each campaign, or at the very least playing with each given DM that you might play with, yields a different gameplay experience. So like, in some cases it's all about making difficult decisions and going through dungeons and fighting things. Other campaigns, we've got this storyline, you've got to go do this thing. Or other campaigns like the one I'm currently doing, which is one I haven't done before, is the life of these characters living in the world. And then there's little things. For example, your campaign, when I was playing, a big part of it was keeping the character journals.
Yes.
And that's not really something they can do while they're also keeping up with the stream.
Right.
But I thought it might be neat for you to go back and read those character journals again.
Yes, I have character journals for my players. Some of them write in them, some not really. But
I used to type in there while we were role playing, just like keeping it going. How would my character write about this?
You had a lot of detail in yours, and I liked it. The only thing I didn't like about yours was that you formatted it in double columns, so I had a very difficult time reading it. But otherwise, I really liked it. You had more...
Well, I was doing it on the computer, or I wouldn't have done it in 2 columns.
I'm just like, I can't read this. But yeah, no, you had a lot of detail, and that was really good. That's exactly what those character journals are for. I just got a absolute tidal wave of writing from the player who plays Jebel the Druid in our campaign, and it was like several pages worth of text. I'm like, awesome, cool, I'll give you XP for this. Just summarizing up, writing up all of his feelings as they were going through the dungeon, and he had taken time to say during roleplay, anytime the group stops and they start chatting, I'm going to take out my journal and begin writing until they start moving again. And so he was able to have his journal isn't just at the end of the day a big mess of here's what happened today. It was like, all right, here's what stuff that happened just now, and now the party's going over there. Okay, hold on. And then there'd be a break and be like, okay, so that sucked. Here's what just happened.
You know what that reminds me of? Stardate. 2383.5.
Point 2.
It reminds me of how the captain in Star Trek is always giving updates during the episode to his captain's log.
Yes.
It's a narrative tool.
Next generation.
It's a good narrative tool.
Yeah, it can be. So that was fun to see. I'm still waiting for Leah the Warlock to update her journal, but she's been the most regular, like pretty much encapsulating every single day.
What I enjoyed with mine was how I was making character decisions in the journal that would be reflected in roleplay, whether or not people noticed. And I was like analyzing every little aspect of how I was approaching my behavior, both in and out of combat. Whereas some players will tell you, "This is a role-playing moment, everyone." I actually had someone say that in a game I'm in. He's like, "This is actually a big role-playing moment." No, you don't say that. You just do it.
You just roleplay. Yeah, no.
Yeah,
I mean, like when the players finally got out of the dungeon and it was suddenly okay. What do you do? You're out. What now? It's not like there's not a room we need to get to. There's not a fight lurking around the corner. We need to just sit down and take stock and figure out what our next move is. It's like that whole session was just roleplay talking to the NPCs that were with them and trying to figure out what their next move was.
I thought it was a fun tool for me as a role player to, if something goes wrong, to use the journal as an outlet to have my character work through the problem and figure out how they're going to tackle the issue from then on. For example, how I would draw aggro and then rage and then reckless, and then in the reckless attack, I'm going to get hit all the time. So I needed to stop doing that. So my character worked through it and I stopped doing it.
I recall that. Reckless is a good one, though, just because, yeah, you might take the... If you're raging, you're taking half damage. So it's like, you get hit twice as often, but you're taking normal damage because of it. And you're hitting pretty much every time because of the advantage. Like, it's actually a really fair trade-off for the the Barbarian's getting the better end of the stick, especially because when damage gets halved, it rounds down.
Yes, but this was the encounter where the giant kept critting.
Yeah, that was not a good encounter for you.
So my character concluded that it was his fault.
I mean, it was definitely Riken's fault.
Not
to assign blame here, but it was definitely Riken's fault.
It was nowhere near Riken's fault.
Yeah, Riken wasn't the one who revived me either.
I like that there was a moment in yesterday's session where they're fighting this purple worm. They've got two characters who are practically dead from what's going on with the purple worm. One of them got eaten, the other one's just getting the crap kicked out of them by the purple worm. And Riken comes up, lands a blow, and it's like, do you want to crit? Or are you going to smite? And there's Alex goes, let me think about it. And everybody immediately goes, are you sure you don't want to save it for later? You might need it.
Yes.
It was.
This was like when we just rested, so I had all my freaking spell slots.
And that was, how many years ago was that when that happened?
2.5-ish, 2.
2.5,
Yeah,
maybe
that was
3.
towards the beginning.
That was really close to the beginning of the campaign.
I'm glad that they never let him forget about
Oh no,
that,
no
my
one's
character was
ever
pretty
letting
sore about
him
it.
forget that time he got most of the party killed.
To be fair, the only character that's still left from that, I think, is Vendar.
Yeah.
That's such a sad thought. Bruenor's dead.
Reno had revived me and then got knocked out.
Tam left. Eris left. Zook went into a snow pile and disappeared.
Yeah, Kay's gone.
It happens.
Yeah.
People come and go. I actually had a campaign where it was in between missions, players could choose to swap characters with a backup character if they wanted to. So then it would mean that their character was doing something else during the given mission.
Mm. Well,
only one player really wanted to do it because he had a backup character he wanted to try. So the idea was his other character was off doing something else.
Yeah, I've done exactly one. You know, I'm still streaming. I don't need to be, but it's just kind of a cool discussion. There's only been one game that I've played where we set up not backup characters, secondary characters at the beginning, and basically your primary character and secondary character were acting, you know, at the same time, doing stuff. You would just, one had one job and the other had a different job. And we played Battletech, which is MechWarrior. And so I created everybody created a MechWarrior so that we had somebody to go into combat with. And then we created another character who had a more utility role. So I made a jump ship pilot as my backup character. And in the very first combat of the game, where we were trying to escape a planet as we were being jumped by a bunch of clanners, my character died. And I mean, like, my MechWarrior character died. I called out this one clanner to a duel and went in to fight him, and on his, like, second attack in the fight, he scored a headshot and destroyed the cockpit of my mech, killing my character.
Oh no!
Yeah, he's dead. Like, that mech is ruined, and that dude is dead. And they were like, "Oh, that sucks so bad. You can make a new MechWarrior if you want." I'm like, no, it's fine, because 2 characters is a lot for me to manage, and I really, really am looking forward to role playing my jump ship pilot. And honestly, it was one of the most fun roleplay experiences I've had, just for straight up, like, what can I accomplish with straight up roleplay and no combat, because I managed to convince an entire crew to follow my character, even though he was basically, like, de facto captain, because I just didn't have anybody else on hand. And he basically took over the ship, got it running like a well-oiled machine. Like, I went down the list and said, here are the jobs we need done. We need people worrying about this, you know, engines, latrines, sanitation, food, all of that stuff. I went through the list. I got minute on this stuff, and I won the loyalty of all of them. And then at the end of the campaign, we revealed that my jump ship pilot, not my MechWarrior, but my jump ship pilot and one of the other characters who was a MechWarrior were actually clansmen in disguise. We were undercover, and at that point, you know, I treated them like humans, because that's what we were there to do. We were just trying to ensure a lot of power. I said, okay, look, we're stopping at this planet to refuel. This is the situation. If you want to stay, you're welcome to stay. If you want to leave, the planet's safe and you can leave, and I'm not going to stop you. Half the people who were our enemy technically stayed on the ship because they were loyal to my character. Like, that's awesome. I had done a good job, so that was a lot of fun. That was a good role-play experience. Like, everybody else was doing the combat. I'm just, like, on the ship, like, get your asses on here, we gotta go!
We gotta go!
We gotta go!
There's a monkey driving the car. Alright, I'm gonna end the stream on that.
I'm gonna head over and see what the